It was a typical Saturday afternoon at the local supermarket, the kind of place where families shop for the week's groceries, and neighbors exchange small talk in the aisles. The scent of fresh bread and produce filled the air as the overhead fluorescent lights buzzed. When Marcus Williams, a tall, athletic black man in his late 20s, heard the sharp, irate voice behind him, he was standing in the cereal aisle comparing prices and labels. "You are not welcome here. Return to your nation." Everyone remained still as the words pierced the store's hum. Marcus turned slowly, his expression calm but his heart pounding. Standing before him was an older white woman, her face flushed with anger, her finger jabbing the air between them. Around them, shoppers stopped and stared, some in shock, others in discomfort, a few reaching for their phones. The woman's voice rose, trembling with rage. "People like you are ruining this country. Why don't you simply return to Africa?" The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the distant beep of a register. Marcus looked at her, then at the crowd, his mind racing. The expectation that he would either lash out or retreat was palpable, and he could feel the weight of every eye in the aisle. However, Marcus had long ago realized that dignity was his best weapon. He took a deep breath, straightened his shoulders, and spoke in a voice that was steady and clear. "Ma'am, I was born in this city. My parents were born in this country. My grandfather fought for this country in World War II. I pay my taxes. I volunteer at the local youth center, and I coach the high school basketball team. I belong here just as much as anyone else." The woman sputtered, her anger faltering as the crowd began to murmur. A young mother stepped forward, her hand on her child's shoulder. "He's right," she said quietly. "All of us are Americans here." An elderly man nodded, adding, "My family came from Ireland. Should I return as well?" The woman's face turned red, her bravado crumbling, as she realized the crowd was not on her side. Marcus carried on, his voice getting louder. "Hate doesn't make this country better. It only divides us. We all have a choice to lift each other up or tear each other down. I choose to build, to help, to be part of the solution." A little applause broke the silence, and as more people joined in, it got louder. The woman, now clearly shaken, quickly turned and left, her embarrassment taking the place of her anger. Marcus stood tall, his heart still racing but his spirit unbroken. A store manager came up to Marcus and expressed regret for the incident and appreciation for his composure. He remarked, "You handle that with more grace than most. You tell us if you ever need anything." Marcus smiled, grateful for support. As he finished his shopping, people stopped to shake his hand, to thank him, to share their own stories of facing prejudice. The moment had started with hate, but ended with hope, a reminder that courage and kindness could change hearts, even in the unlikeliest of places. Marcus was aware that he had done more than just defend himself as he left the store, the crowd's applause still ringing in his ears. He had demonstrated to everyone who was watching that respect, honesty, and unity would always prevail over hatred. The supermarket incident's narrative did not end at the cash register. As Marcus walked to his car, his phone buzzed with messages from friends and family. Some had already seen a video of the incident posted online by a bystander, while others had heard about it from people who'd been there. The woman's outburst, Marcus' calm response, and the crowd's reaction were all captured in the blurry but clear video. The video had been shared thousands of times and received comments from all over the country by the time Marcus got home. Marcus' calm demeanor and eloquence were praised by others, while others expressed outrage at the woman's actions. News outlets picked up the story, and soon Marcus was fielding calls from reporters, community leaders, and even the mayor's office. Marcus was initially reluctant to speak in public. He was just a man trying to buy cereal on a Saturday afternoon, and had no intention of becoming a symbol or a spokesperson. But Marcus realized that his response had touched a chord when he read the messages from young people who said that his words had inspired them, from parents who thanked him for showing their children how to stand up to hate, and from elders who talk about their own struggles for dignity. He agreed to do an interview with the local news, in which he talked about how important it is to be part of a community, to be compassionate, and to stand up for what is right. "We can't control what other people say or do," he told the reporter, "but we can control how we respond. I want my neighbors to know that we all belong here, and that we're stronger together. The interview aired that evening, and the response was overwhelming. People from all walks of life reached out to Marcus, sharing their own experiences with racism and asking how they could help make their community more inclusive. The supermarket where the incident had occurred put up signs reading, "Hate has no home here," and organized a community forum on diversity and respect, inviting Marcus to speak. At the forum, the room was packed with people: students, parents, business owners, and city officials. Marcus, a little anxious but determined to use his voice effectively, stood at the front. He talked about the history of his family, the difficulties he had experienced as a child, and the mentors who had taught him to be patient and strong in the face of ignorance. He urged everyone to take care of one another, to speak up when they saw injustice, and to keep in mind that remaining silent in the face of hatred was a form of complicity in its own right. After his speech, a line of people formed to thank him, some with tears in their eyes. Among them was a young black boy who said, "I want to be like you when I grow up." Marcus knelt down and told him, "You can be even better. Always maintain your dignity and treat others with respect, no matter what." The woman who had started it all did not come back to the store, but nobody noticed that she was gone. Marcus's ugly situation had been transformed into an opportunity for growth and connection by the community's support. Marcus collaborated with teachers to develop lessons on empathy and inclusion, and he was invited to speak at assemblies by the local school district. The city council passed a resolution condemning hate speech and supporting diversity, and the mayor declared a Unity Day in honor of the community's response. Marcus remained humble throughout and insisted that he was just one person doing the right thing for everyone. But those who had witnessed the moment and those who had been touched by his words knew that his courage had made a difference. The incident at the supermarket became a story told in classrooms and living rooms, serving as a reminder that the dignity of one person can motivate a community as a whole to improve. And Marcus carried with him the knowledge that sometimes the most powerful response to hatred is simply to stand tall, speak the truth, and let kindness do the rest. He continued to coach basketball, volunteer at the youth center, and shop at the same store where it all started. Marcus's life changed in unexpected ways over the following weeks. His calm and dignified response continued to be shared, reaching audiences not only in the city but also nationwide and even internationally. Marcus was invited to speak on podcasts and radio shows about race, resilience, and the power of nonviolent confrontation after national news outlets asked for interviews. At first, the attention was overwhelming. Marcus was at heart a private person. He valued his quiet routines, his work with local kids, and his time with family. But everywhere he went, people recognized him. On the street, people stopped him to say thanks, tell him their own experiences with prejudice, or ask for advice on how to deal with hate. Even when some people asked for selfies, Marcus always smiled when they asked. The local high school invited him to give the keynote address at graduation, and Marcus spent days crafting a speech that would speak to the moment but also to the future. On the day of the ceremony, he stood before a sea of young faces, their eyes bright with hope and uncertainty. "You will face challenges," he told them, "and sometimes you'll meet people who want to tear you down because of who you are. However, you can choose. You can define yourself through your actions or by what they say about you. Keep in mind that you belong, speak with kindness, and stand tall." The applause was thunderous, and afterward, students and parents alike thanked him for his message. Marcus's influence began to ripple outward. The city's Unity Day, inspired by his story, became an annual event, drawing crowds from neighboring towns. Students who demonstrated leadership in promoting diversity and inclusion received scholarships from local businesses. The youth center where Marcus volunteered saw a surge in participation, and he started a mentorship program for young men and women of color, helping them navigate the challenges of growing up in a world that sometimes seemed stacked against them. Marcus also found himself at the center of difficult conversations. The attention the incident had garnered did not please everyone in the community. Some individuals sent anonymous messages to Marcus, telling him to stop stirring the pot, while others complained that the city was making too big a deal about one woman's outburst. Marcus met these challenges with the same calm resolve he had shown in the supermarket. He reached out to people who didn't agree with him, invited them to the forums, and listened to what they had to say. He stated, "We can't move forward if we're not willing to talk." Eventually, some minds and hearts began to shift. The woman who had confronted Marcus remained silent, but her family reached out privately to apologize for her actions. Marcus accepted their apology, telling them that everyone had the capacity to learn and grow. He stated, "What matters is what we do next." The story even reached the state capitol, where lawmakers cited Marcus's example in debates about hate crime legislation and anti-bias training for public employees. Marcus was invited to testify before a legislative committee where he spoke about the importance of empathy, education, and community support. He stated, "We can create environments where it is easier to choose, but we can't legislate kindness." Through it all, Marcus stayed grounded. He continued to coach basketball, to volunteer, and to shop at the same supermarket, where employees now greeted him like an old friend. He never let the attention go to his head, always reminding himself that he was just one person, doing his best to make a difference. But those who knew him, and those who had been touched by his story, understood that sometimes one person's courage could change the world, or at least make a little kinder, one day at a time. Months turned into a year, and the story of Marcus's supermarket encounter became woven into the fabric of the community's identity. Music, food, and speakers from all walks of life were featured at the citywide festival that grew out of the annual Unity Day. Marcus, now a familiar face at City Hall and in local schools, was often asked to open the event, and each time he did, he reminded the crowd that the work of building understanding and respect was never finished. "We are all neighbors," he would say, "and every day is a new chance to choose kindness over hate." Dutsen of young people found guidance, friendship, and a sense of belonging to the mentorship program he established, which he launched with great success. Marcus watched with pride as his men graduated, found jobs, and became leaders in their own right, many of them crediting his example for their confidence and resolve. The local police department collaborated with Marcus and other community leaders to host listening sessions and anti-bias training, and the city's businesses began sponsoring diversity workshops and community service projects inspired by Marcus's story. With a mural depicting people from all walks of life standing together and the words, "We all belong," written in large, vibrant letters, the supermarket where it all began became a symbol of change. Marcus's influence even reached beyond the city. He was invited to speak at conferences and universities, sharing his story and the lessons he'd learned about courage, dignity, and the power of a measured response. He met people from all walks of life, immigrants, veterans, students, and activists, each with their own stories of struggle and triumph. Marcus was always eager to learn and connect, so he listened as much as he spoke. He remained humble through it all, never forgetting the day that had altered his and so many others' lives. He wondered frequently whether the woman who had confronted him had found peace or understanding. He hoped that, wherever she was, she had learned that hate was a burden too heavy to carry, and that forgiveness and growth were always possible. Marcus's family, once worried about the attention and the risks that came with it, now celebrated his impact. His parents beamed with pride at community events, and his younger sister, inspired by his example, started her own initiative to support immigrant families in the area. Marcus's friends teased him about his newfound fame, but they also stood by him, helping with events and volunteering at the youth center. The city itself changed, slowly but surely. Incidents of open racism became rarer, and when they did occur, the community responded swiftly and decisively, standing together to support those targeted. Empathy and inclusion lessons were taught in schools, and local leaders made it clear that hate had no place in their city. The story of Marcus was told in schools not as a story about being a victim, but rather as a reminder of the power of dignity and the significance of standing up for what is right. On the anniversary of the supermarket incident, Marcus stood before a crowd of hundreds, the mural behind him glowing in the afternoon sun. He looked out at the faces, young and old, black and white, newcomers and lifelong residents, and felt a deep sense of gratitude. He stated, "The worst things that happen to us are not what define us. We are defined by how we respond, by the love and courage we show in the face of hate. Let's keep building this community together, one act of kindness at a time." As Marcus left the stage, he was greeted by friends, family, and strangers who had become allies as the applause was thunderous. He was aware that obstacles would always arise and that prejudice and ignorance would never completely vanish. But he also knew that they had made something long-lasting together, a legacy of unity, respect, and hope that would motivate future generations. And as he walked home that evening, Marcus felt lighter, his heart full, knowing that his response on that fateful day had left the crowd and the world speechless, not with anger or shame, but with the quiet, undeniable power of grace.